What's up, cycling junkies? We're back with another episode of Pack Chatter. We have an absolutely legendary guest for you again today. But before we start, we got to hit up the sponsors. First, we are sponsored by Legacy Bikes. That's Legacy with an I, Legaci, bikes.com. And Legacy Bikes, they've been doing bikes for over 30 years, and now they are into balance bikes. So you can hit my man Todd up at legacybikes.com or check him out on Facebook and see about getting your kid on a balance bike. My daughter has one. She loves it. It's definitely the way to go. We're also sponsored by NYSBRA, the New York State Bicycle Racing Association. NYSBRA is responsible for all the behind-the-scenes work of racing, whether you're talking about calendars, state championships, officials, all of that good stuff. They've got grant money out there for juniors, for events, for clinics. So check out their website for the 2019 race schedules, the state championship events, as well as some potential grant money to help your event or your clinic for 2019. We're also brought to you by the Dirty Bikes Gravel Series and the Recovery Ride with Jeremy Powers as part of the first weekend of the series after the first event at the Ocean Giant Gravel Grinder. So we'll race on Saturday. And then on Sunday, you can join Jeremy Powers, Anthony Clark, and maybe a few others for a recovery ride on sections of gravel in the area that will not be featured in the course. We'll include a breakfast and a lunch with the pros, along with the supported 20 to 25 mile recovery ride. All of the proceeds from that day of the event go to junior development, and we're working on a partnership there with a really exciting announcement that I can't quite make yet, but hopefully we'll hear in the next week about where that money's going to go for junior development into a really cool program that's just getting kicked off in New York. So stay tuned for that, but you can get signed up now on bikereg.com and sign up to ride with Jay Powell and the crew after the Ocean Giant and help us raise a little money for the future of racing. All right, today's guest is an absolute legend, Hunter Allen from Peaks Coaching Group. He is considered the world's foremost leader on training with power meters. He's written 2 books with a third one coming out in March on that topic, and as he continues to refine that, he's been doing that for over 15 years now with training with power, and he just keeps getting better and more knowledgeable in that. He's also an Olympic coach. He's a retired pro racer. He's got just tons and tons and tons of good stuff. We had a great conversation last night, learned a lot about power meters, and we also got into a little bit about esports and some other new technology that you might see coming your way pretty soon. So check out the episode and enjoy the show.
You'll never go out on a training ride and dig that deep.
Awesome. We won gold.
They're life rides.
I'm like, dude, I'm still figuring this out.
Lose sight of the fact that it's whoever goes faster.
This isn't a road race. This isn't a mountain bike race.
The sensei of sprint, Todd Shesky.
My eyes are coming out of my head. Just get in here.
All right, and we're on with Pack Chatter, another episode. I'm your host, Tony, and with me, as always, my man, Todd Shesky. What's up, buddy?
Well, I'm just logging trainer miles, man. We got 2 feet of snow last weekend, and so there I am. I'm become a solid Zwift follower. I just do my own thing, but I'm on there lurking around, seeing who else is racing everybody. So.
Oh, you're on the Zwift, huh? We'll have to bring. I want to bring Hunter into this conversation right away, and then I want to tell you a fun little story about my daughter and the training miles without Zwift. So first, let's introduce our guest, and then we'll talk a little bit about some training miles and everything else here. We are really lucky to have Hunter Allen from Peaks Coaching Group. He's the founder and CEO there. He's an Olympic coach, retired pro, expert on power meters, author, all kinds of good stuff. Thanks for joining us, Hunter. How you doing?
Oh man, I'm doing great, guys. Glad to hear your voice, and psyched to be here on your podcast. This is awesome.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, and we're excited to have you, and I'm excited to learn a whole lot here. So very cool.
Super.
So as I was saying, Todd, I wanted to tell both you guys, I was I was on my rollers. I'm not on Zwift. I've yet to give that a try. But I was on my rollers last weekend, and I got as you know, Todd, I got a Strider with the rocker set up for my daughter. She'll be 2 in May. So if you haven't seen, the audience hasn't seen those rocker setups, basically just like putting the Strider balance bike on a rocking horse, which is great for her because she's still a little bit small to actually use the Strider, but she can get on there and she can go back and forth. So I'm on the rollers, and I'm going along, and she says, "Daddy, ride bikes with you." And I said, okay. So I set it up in front, and we're sitting there riding together, and she's rocking back and forth. So then I stand up on the rollers for a minute, and she stands up on her bike. And then I sit back, and I put my hands up, and I ride on the rollers for a minute without any hands. And she puts her hands up to show me she could do that. So then she stands up on those little rails on the back of the bike, and she's balancing there. And she goes no-handed while standing on the rails. And I went, "Baby, you're not 2 years old yet. You just beat me on the rollers because I cannot stand and go no-handed on the rollers." So she showed me up, and she's not 2.
That's awesome. Hey, you're getting her started early, man. It's the best stuff. She'll be rocking on that thing this spring. Obviously, I mean, she's no pun intended, but she's already rocking on that thing. So it's great. It's good to see her. Good to see her on it.
A lot of fun when you can't get outside and ride.
Yep. So, yeah. So I mean, we've all been kind of a little winter bound here, but Hunter's got a little bit better situation down in Virginia, and he's been real busy lately too. A lot of great stuff has been going on out there. Just we've talked in the past about some of the where the U.S. cycling scene is, but Hunter's been over doing some things in Asia, and we'll loop back, I think, to some of that. But it's been an exploding scene over there from what you've seen, right, Hunter?
Yeah, it's really incredible. I was in China for basically 3.5 weeks. Pretty much the whole month of December. Came back just in time for Christmas, but. I mean, it is absolutely incredible. I mean, it is just really difficult to explain how big cycling is becoming there. I mean, they have races all over the country every weekend. There's big money in the races. I mean, amateur Cat 1s and 2s are making like $70,000 a year just winning prize money.
Wow.
Yeah. It's incredible, and it's not just like 1 or 2 guys. It's like, there's a couple hundred guys who are amateurs that are making that much money right now in China. And they're racing all the time, I mean, they had races in December when I was there. So, and they've got money in the Grand Fondos. I was there, and one of the guys, an American expat, lives over there in Shanghai, and he came to one of my seminars for the day, and he's like, yeah, I was in the Grand Fondo, and it was like, I was in the, the lead pack, and then there was like a little breakaway, and I went with that, and then I ended up just sprinting for the finish line because I thought that would be cool, and I won $3,000.
It's unbelievable, man. It's like, it blows me away.
Where are they getting the money from in these events? Is it all through sponsorship, or is it riders paying to get in? Like how are they raising the funds to fund those things?
Yeah, it's all the city and local governments, so the city and local governments are all sponsoring it. They're putting all the money up. They're trying to show off their cities to the rest of the Chinese people and show how great their cities are. And so they're the ones, making it happen and paying for it. And, they've got rolling enclosures and, blocked roads. And I mean, it's the real deal. Now they don't have categories. So, when you have a race, you got like 300 people in the race, and there's every level. So there's a lot of crashes from what I hear, until the riders who don't know how to ride quite so well get jettisoned, right?
They thin the herd pretty quick, huh?
Right. I think they take off pretty hard. It kind of sounds like a little Belgian kermesse race in there at the start, but otherwise it's really booming. The company that brought me over there, the Magene Company, it's spelled Magene. They make a smart trainer, and they made such a good smart trainer that Wahoo has went over there and was so impressed with him. Wahoo bought a 7% stake in the company, and Magine now makes what they call the core, the main internal part inside the Wahoo kicker. So they are really, really psyched with that company, and they're the guys who are making it. And so, they also make a power meter. They make a left-sided crank arm power meter similar to Stages. And they were telling me that this past year they sold 40,000 smart trainers.
Wow.
In China, not anywhere else, just China. And they've only been selling power meters for 4 months. They've sold 4,000 power meters in 4 months. So just an incredibly exploding market right now.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty insane when you think about obviously there's a billion some people there, but I mean, the fact that 40,000 smart, that's just one company selling smart trainers.
Right.
Start thinking about there's obviously just a huge depth there that there's. I mean, other companies are selling things, and that's people that aren't even using smart trainers yet, or so. Yeah, and it's a little interesting too. And this would be a whole different topic. Would be the whole mass start, no category thing, and it was something I even brought up. I think Tony brought it up a day or so ago. With this,
today. I think it was today.
discussion.
We were on that thread. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if I sent something out, but then I was busy and I didn't go back and see if there's any replies. But it's like, everybody's worried about upgrade points and all this. I'm like, guys, there ain't going to be categories before too long because it's not going that way. And so it's kind of funny that Hunter brings this up in China is exactly what's going on. Is just big races and everybody wants in, and that's kind of the direction it's going. And and part of me says, everything old will become new again, and eventually we'll go back to categories, but it'll probably take 20 years to get there.
Well, I certainly hope not. And I think I think that in China right now it's because of the lack of they just haven't figured it out yet, right? They just haven't figured it out, and I think they'll have master categories. I mean, they've got women categories. They're going to have masters. They're going to start to figure it out and see how that goes. But right now, the sport of cycling over there it's really exploding. And there's a Zwift knockoff called One Lap. You can check it out. One Lap, spelled ONELAP.CN. It's all in Chinese, so if you can read Chinese, and then you can log in and ride on it. But it looks exactly like Zwift, so they've got one of those there as well. I mean, there's 4 power meter companies that nobody even knows about in the rest of the world. So I mean, it's like this whole little economy and world going on over there that the rest of us don't even know about, and it's pretty neat. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Well, let's loop back. I mean, because we'll get down. We'll be 11 o'clock. we'll be extolling all these things that's going on over there. But let's go back in time a little bit. Get a little of your history, Hunter. I think, as we've mentioned, kind of offline, is that so many people have kind of started in cycling in say maybe the last 5 to 8 years. And they don't kind of know what was going on before that. And then I go back 30 plus years. We were lucky we had heart rate monitors in a watch most of the time. And so really kind of take us back to what got you first? How'd you get started in cycling, and then kind of I know you had a pro career in there as well. So kind of speak to how that pathway took you up to working with Andy Coggan and getting peaks, and that kind of how did you kind of get that pathway going?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I started bike racing when I was 11. And my parents wouldn't let me have a motorcycle, so I was like, well, what about a BMX bike? Can I race that? And so little did they know that was going to lead me down a path, a lifetime of riding bicycles. But it was then I raced BMX all through high school. And then in college, got into mountain biking, and I realized that wow, I had some amazing skills that most mountain bikers didn't have back in the middle late '80s, and I could bomb down hills and do single track better than most, but I didn't have the cardiovascular system. So I started training, and then got a road bike because collegiate cycling was just starting in like '88, '89, and all of a sudden it was like, wow, we could race bicycles in college. This would be cool. And our dean was a cyclist, and he gave us $1,000, and we bought jerseys, and we started racing collegiate cycling, and and that was back in the glory days when you got paid in the races at collegiate races. So we'd go to the race on the weekend, and race the Cat 3-4 race or the Cat 4 race, and the collegiate race, and we'd come home with $400, and we like,
nice.
Sweet,
Yeah.
Gas money, beer money.
Right. That's good money in college.
Heck yeah, man.
That's good money now, but that's real good money in college.
It was great, like, why am I working at the barbecue restaurant? I'm quitting there. So anyway, and then just got super. I was very, very I worked really super hard. I'm very fortunate. I've got a large VO2 max and worked really hard and graduated college and lived out in California. Won 3 Pro 1-2s in '91 and got on a team in Spain. Raced in Spain in '92 and then came back and turned pro on the Navigators team. That's been long since gone for now, but they were around for I think 13, 14 years as a pro team. So I was just a pro for a couple of years there, but had a lot of fun times, and it was great. So. Really enjoyed that, but after racing, I was kind of like, well, what am I gonna do with my life? And I was coaching some folks who were local riders and helping them out, and then went to a bike race, and a guy. He said, hey, I really want you to coach me, but I don't have any money because I'm a college student. I'm like, yeah, I understand that.
They took all the money away.
Exactly. So anyway, so he's like, well, but I'm a programmer, so how about I build you a website? And this was 1997, and I was like, what is a website? And he's like, oh, it's like a little business card online, and it'll be cool. I'm like, I've got business cards. I don't need a business card online. So finally he's like,
Nobody had websites then, though, either. So it's sort of like, okay, I remember back in those days when a company I worked for was like website, and we did some, engineer style, right? It's all straight lines, and but nobody had them. So even bad websites look great then.
Yeah, exactly. And so he built me a website, and I mean, and there were none of this WordPress tools and all these things that we have now. I mean, he coded that website, I mean, he wrote it in code. It was, it wasn't like a small little project at that time. So, after like 4 months of the thing being up, I was just like, dude, turn it off. I got like 40 clients. I can't take any more clients. Stop it, So, I mean, it was basically the first cycling coaching website ever in 1997. And then that was the start. And I realized, wow, I have a business here. This is really cool. So I started talking to my old buddies who were still current pros and pros who had retired, and said, hey, you want to coach? I can bring you clients. So that's how it all started, and I called my business Cycling Peaks originally. And then another client came along in the year 1999, 2000, and said, hey, I'm gonna buy one of these power meter things. I want to check this thing out, and would you coach me with it? And I was like, well, I guess. I'd never had a power meter. I don't really know what that is. I could try. And so he got one of the gray hub. I don't know if you remember back in 98, 99, it was the original Tune hub, big mammoth hub thing, weighed about 2 pounds. And so he started sending me all these spreadsheets and wattage numbers, and I didn't know, was 1,000 watts, is that good? Is 200 watts good? I had no clue what it meant. I had no reference.
Well, I think one of the things that's cool about that too, Hunter, is there wasn't like we have software now. There wasn't to analyze it with. So you get these files, and like you're just looking at a bunch of. If you could get a chart, you're looking at a bunch of squiggly lines.
Yep.
There was not like there was no WKO, there was no golden cheaters, there was nothing. There was nothing to use. So yep.
Yeah, I mean exactly, and that was the thing. I mean, and that's where Kevin Williams is his name, and Kevin and I just started batting it around and building a bigger and better spreadsheet. And then next thing there was Sam Callan, who was at the time the coaching education coordinator for USA Cycling, which had just started. He said, hey, we're going to have a power seminar. We're going to have the first ever power seminar. And he got Andy Coggan, he got Alan Lim, and he got Dean Golich to come together. And it was in Philadelphia the same weekend as the big race, the big pro race there at the time. And we were in a hotel room there, like 20 of us all packed in that thing. And, the whole time we sat there and, Andy and Dean and Alan, they all were like, man, this stuff is an amazing tool, but we have no good software. We can't analyze this data really well. We need help. And so Kevin, he was also a programmer, and over lunch, he's like, man, I can make this software. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah, man. I mean, this is what I do. I make data analysis software. And I'm like, wow, let's do it. And he's like, yeah, let's do it. So, he started building a piece of software at that time, and that was 2001 maybe. And we kind of played with it. It was just something that we were playing with back and forth just to learn how to mark up files and create ranges around data and look at averages. It wasn't anything fancy. We had a couple little charts, bar distribution charts and stuff. And then we got a little bit more farther along, and we said, well, we called up PowerTap and said to PowerTap, hey, guys, we got a piece of software we'd like for you guys to look at. And so we flew up to Wisconsin and met with those guys and showed them what we had, and said, hey, we'll sell the software to you if you want. And we wanted $100,000. We're like, yeah, we'll sell it. $100,000. We'll sell it to you. And they kind of laughed at us and said, well, we'll give you $25,000. And we're like, yeah, no way, forget it. We're gonna, it's worth more than that. That turned out to be a really good decision.
Yeah. So they're trying to get it on the cheap, and then maybe didn't even realize the real potential at that point either. I think in many regards, I mean, you were sitting in a position, and certainly Andy, from a lot of years of doing the work that he's done professionally as well, and just looking at what you really have there, and the no pun intended, but the power that you hold by being able to know what to do with the data, because otherwise the data doesn't do you any good if you don't have any way of looking at it.
Yeah, at what point in this process or this time span did you kind of come to that realization that, like, this is it? Like, this is going to change the way everybody trains? Like, is there a moment where that kind of happens, or did it just sort of slowly come out?
Well, I mean, it wasn't. We didn't really think that was going to happen. I mean, we started getting more and more serious. I mean, once those guys turned us down and said, hey, we're not interested in the price, and then we said, well, we need to launch this ourselves, and we started talking to, we'd always been talking to Coggan, built a relationship with him, and then at that point we started to see, I really started to see trends. I started to see patterns. I started to see things occurring with all the athletes that I was working with at that time, and bouncing those things off of Andy. And I was like, hey, this is something that I'm thinking I'm seeing here. Is there a basis in exercise physiology for this? And so then he would say, yeah, that makes sense, and this makes sense. And so we brought Andy in, and then one day, I started thinking, I'm like, man, we need a score, right? We need a score. We need a way to score every workout. because we get second by second data, we get the power data, we know exactly what's going on, we know all these things, and we can score this stuff. And so I talked to Andy about it, I told him my idea, and he's like, well, let me think about it. All right, so 2 weeks later, it comes back, Eureka! I've got it. And he's like, it's going to be called Training Stress Score, and it's built on the training impulse idea, this TRIMPS idea. And so that's how Training Stress Score was born. And then we started building that, because then that was like, oh, we have to have this intensity factor, because we needed to make sure intensity was in Training Stress Score, because that's what kilojoules don't do, right? If you just look at kilojoules, then you're really just looking at work done. But, hey, my grandmother can do 3,000 kilojoules in 6 hours, 10 hours, right? Well, or you can do 3,000 kilojoules in 3.5 hours, and you're really drilling it at, sweet spot or above. So it doesn't tell you the intensity, but that's what we need to really bring in. Let's get the intensity factor into Training Stress Score so we could factor that in. And then he came up with normalized power as well, because that was a way to really understand, what was happening to the body. What was the metabolic cost? So at that point, then I realized, like, wow, because the grand vision back in 2003 was to be able to periodize people's training and predict their performance by how they responded to training and using the score. And so that was my, this is how I really want this to all work, and be able to plan using these numbers. So that was, and once that came out, then it was like, yeah, maybe we do have something here.
Yeah, and I think once you start getting into that, the predictive modeling and I mean, everything is going that way. And it's one of those things where you see it in business, where you're trying to get data. First, trying to just get good data is the first hurdle, and you guys kind of conquered that. And I remember you might even remember back when Greg LeMond had like an early SRM. And I remember him riding with it, but nobody knew what to do with the stuff. You just go out and try to get average watts. He's like, I don't know, average watts. Okay, great. And so it seemed like this goofy tools are like, what are you supposed to do with this thing? And so getting good data is kind of the first hurdle. And then kind of driving the bus by looking in the rearview mirror by going, okay, well, I got some data from before, and what did I do? And so you kind of describe what you did. And then taking that next one, and I think now the latest version of the WKO is really pushed into that predictive part of it. And you guys are scratching that surface on 3 with like, okay, we can kind of really describe what we've been doing, and kind of getting. I remember even making spreadsheets from some of the models and stuff, and saying, I want to make a spreadsheet because I'm gonna be able to predict where I want to be. And I'm like, I was frustrated because it wouldn't predict. And then all of a sudden, then a couple of years ago, I was like, well, now we can predict. I'm like, oh, well, I don't need the spreadsheets anymore. So, but you see that transformation happen. And you guys really being on the forefront of that, and I've always said, man, Andy's masterful in his statistics ability, and the models that he had, and the model that he has now it's just fantastic, and it's just such great work that he's extracted these latent variables and be able to create these models. It's not easy, obviously, and if it was easy, other people would be doing it right now, and there's nobody really at that level.
Yeah, exactly. And that was it all along. I mean, and how to make riders better, right? I mean, our goal all along was like, how do we shortcut this rider's time they need to train? How do we make them better? And then how do we peak them on time, right? I mean, it's just this idea of form, and it's always been ethereal forever, right? It was just like, well, these pros always are killing it around Paris-Roubaix and Tour of Flanders. Like, how do they always do that? How are they always on form right when they need to be? And so nobody really kind of knew that. Nobody knew what was the formula to make that happen. But some riders had figured it out. And so that was when we came up with a performance manager chart for version 2, and that was of the software. It was 2006 when we launched the software. We called it Cycling Peaks in 2003. And then we merged with TrainingBible.com. Joe Friel and Dirk Friel, another guy named Gear Fisher, they started a company called Training Bible, and we merged the company together with them. So Training Bible, Cycling Peaks, that became Training Peaks. And then in 2006, we launched the second version, and that's really when we started to start thinking even more about how to do this performance modeling. And then the third version really got it going in 2009 when we launched that, because then it was like, oh, here's the performance manager chart. Here's how you can see what's happened and correlate your best performance and wattages with your freshness and your fatigue and your chronic training load. And so, that was when, and again, Andy and I wrote the first edition of Training and Racing on the Power Meter, and that came out in 2006. And that, after a couple of years of that being out, then that was when I really realized, like, oh wow, this is revolutionary. This is a whole new paradigm of training that we've created here. And then we got the second edition out with the performance manager in it. Then it was just like, okay, this is wow. We've been very fortunate here to change the world at this point. And this is going to be really cool. So that was really when it happened.
Yeah, and it's funny. I was kind of chuckling a little bit when you were, kind of going back to, the first power meter, that big clunky thing, and somebody kind of saying, "Hey, I want to use this thing. Will you coach me with it?" And I had a similar experience, and some people in the club had started to get some early power meters, and they had the early power tap ones, which were kind of heavy, and they didn't know how to train with it, right? So they're on a group ride, and they're killing it on the downhill, and they're riding in their smalls gear uphill because they're like, I got to average 200 watts, and so they're trying to make the average by flattening the road, basically, right? So they're riding all, and it's like I'm not training that way. I go, that's dumb, So I had an athlete that I had started to coach, and he was an electrical engineer, and always kind of interested in things and electronic things. He said, "Hey, I want to try one of these power meters." I'm like, I don't know, dude. I said, I'm seeing how people ride this thing. I don't think it's very smart. And but then I picked up a copy of that book. I said, let's try this thing. There's got to be a smarter way. I think these people are just not doing it right. And I want to get in that book, and I came to a seminar that you and Andy did, and I kind of kicked it off, and it was like, yeah, there is a better way to do this, and I was like, yeah, this is kind of the thing. And that was, God, I'm trying to even think what year that was. It was at least a dozen years ago now. But it was funny. I was kind of juggling. It was the same thing. I'm like, I don't know. I guess you can use power meter. I guess, And one of the things I find interesting too about when you kind of put that together, like you said, some of the pros were figuring it out, right, and kind of peaking. And some of the things that, I don't know, there's some old school things and things that I learned and things that I did as a bike racer that once I quantified them, was like, wow, I was really doing some right stuff. I didn't have any way of measuring it. But now that I can measure it, I can replicate it and have other people do it. Yeah. I just kind of was doing it by like, I just do this. I go out to this hill and I do these repeats, or I just do this thing and I always go from this town to this town, and and I just monitor these efforts, but I didn't really have any way of measuring it. And I was doing things like riding my trainer and going like, hey, I set it on resistance setting 4 in the 53-14 at 90 RPMs, so I'm like capturing data, but I didn't have a way of measuring it directly. And being able to do that confirm now is really, really powerful, and being able to replicate it with other people. And
right.
So it's not just exclusively yours. Like, I don't know, this bro kind of figured it out, but how do you get other people to do it?
Right.
That's exactly. That's been, I think, the real power, is being able to say you can get it, you can roll it out to a lot more people. Right. Otherwise, it's like, well, what good is it? Like, hey, what works for me, but it doesn't work for 1,000 other people, then it's not going to be sellable. So
right. And I think that, and you hit the nail on the head there, Todd. I mean, that was what made it, so revolutionary. Was one, it was this step-by-step process that I came up with, and I really, I didn't really set out to say, oh, I'm gonna, create a systematize this thing, or anything like that. I was like, well, this is just the logical step-by-step process of how you train with a power meter, and it's like, okay, number one, go collect data. We got to have data. We got to know what your norms are. Number two, go test, right? Let's figure out what your FTP is. Number three, do your power profile test. We need to know what your 1 minute, your 5 second, your 5 minute is. We need to understand how these energy systems work. After that, then it's like, okay, now we can use those numbers to go and actually train specifically for where you want to train. What are the demands of your event? Oh, you're doing a criterium. Okay, well, we're going to train a specific way for that using our power meter to help us do that, or a road race or a Gran Fondo, whatever that is. And then after that, it was like, okay, now analyze the data. Step 6. Here's the data. Now that I've analyzed it, let's use all these amazing tools that we came up with: quadrant analysis and training stress score, and now we've got gross power released on if you've got a left-right power meter, and gross power absorbed, and all these tools that we use to analyze the data. And then after that, it's like, okay, now you got to go out there and make changes and decide, do I need to make a change here, or should I stick with my plan of what I've got and then peak on time? So that system, that process was, just kind of came, as a rational part of it. And that's what is very repeatable. And man, that's it. So it's been really fun.
Yeah, I think I look kind of over that continuum, and now you've got a new book out as well. That just is it full, ready to be bought now, or I know you've been close.
It's not. Yeah, I wish it was, man. We've had a couple of delays at the publisher. It was supposed to have been out by now, but we got a couple of delays. Right now, I heard yesterday that it will be out the first week of March. So we got another little delay we're dealing with, but that's unfortunately neither. It's the printer. We're blaming it on the printer. But anyway, it's coming out. It's the third edition. We sold 120,000 copies of the second edition. It's the second edition was in or is in 8 different languages now, which is amazing. To get emails from China and Japan and Germany and Italian and everywhere around the world. And then so the third edition will be out. We've got some new chapters in there. We put in we've got some new metrics that we've come up over the last 10 years because things have gotten even better with the release of WKO4. We've got some new things called like functional reserve capacity, which is the amount of work that you can do above your FTP. So that's a new concept. Then and we've got a different chapter on power meters themselves. We've got a couple new case studies. We've got a new training plan in there. So we've added a lot to the third edition. It's now like 400 pages or something. It's like, geez, this thing is huge now.
Yeah, no kidding. But I think it's so. It's really, it's appropriate for the changes in WKO4 that came out, and it's hard to believe that's been a couple of years now, because of just so much activity on the forums, everybody learning so much with it. It was almost overwhelming at one point being on some of the groups because so many people were just doing so much with it. I was like, man, I can't even read all this stuff because I can't read all of it and absorb all of it, and I'm trying to learn, and everybody's learning, but it's been a really fun environment. And like with some of the new metrics, and you see the people charting different things, and Tim Cusick has been really amazing with support and education on what all of that entails. And you just see such a great community of people sharing ideas out there as well. But I always kind of look back as like, I look back at what you guys did with bringing power meters on, and in Peak's coaching group especially is, and I kind of look at it as the same vein as Greg LeMond. You guys are innovators, and I think you drive a lot of that into Peak's coaching group. But I also see with the coaches of the collaboration that goes on. I've coached multi-sport, and I've been like, hey, I need some info. Like I'm not a swimmer, I know what I want to work on, and there's collaboration there. But beyond that, even I think, and I got a cool compliment from somebody. I was mentioning some stuff we were doing, and I was mentioning that Leomo unit that you've also been really involved with, which is fantastic for getting this. If people don't know what it is, I'll let you expand on that. But somebody goes back and said, I'm trying to do this thing, and I want to get on my track bike, but I've been trying to do this other thing, and they're like, man, you're always doing something cool. And I was like, yeah, it's fun, and it's fun to do these innovative things, and that's one of the things I really like about working with you, or the Peak Coaching Group, and because we're always kind of doing something new and always sitting back and like, hey, this was really good, but it's great to have done something really cool, but always pushing to something new. I think that Leoma one is a really cool one too. If you want to speak to that a little bit, and what you've been going on with it.
Absolutely, and thanks. Thanks so much. Because that's been one of my thoughts as well is hey, guys, if I'm about to turn 50 here in about 3 or 4 months, and if I'm still talking about power training when I'm 65 and 15 years from now, just stop me, okay? I don't want to be the freaking dinosaur. All right. It's like people still talking about heart rate training now. Like that was like back in 1980. Okay, like. It's over. Right? You don't talk about heart rate training anymore. And so, and that's something, I want to be on the cutting edge, and I want to be out there and investigating new technologies and learning more, right? I have this incredible passion for learning, and I have this really gift. It's the only thing I can say, to be able to look at the data, to be able to see patterns and see trends in the data. It's almost like I can kind of read the matrix there a little bit, and then come up with ideas about how to display it and what it means and what that relates to. So I've been very fortunate in that regard. And this company, this Japanese company, the Leomo company, came to me about 3 years ago, and they said, hey, we got this really cool idea for a motion analysis, and we want to put sensors on people's quadriceps, on the top of their foot, on their cycling shoe, on their low back, maybe on their chest, and see what happens. Like, see what kind of motion we have and what we can capture. What do you think? And I was like, that sounds pretty cool. Let's do it. Let's see what happens. So they came back about a year later and said, hey, we got a prototype. This thing's going to be awesome. You want to be involved? I'm like, yeah, definitely. I want to see what's going on here. So, they came back about 6-8 months later and said, hey, okay, we got a unit for you. We have no idea what this stuff means. we can't figure it out. It's pretty cool, but we have no idea. We need you to figure out what it means. So I said, okay, I'll do my best here. So I really took that to heart and spent a ton of time working on, what happens exactly to your foot. We came up with some really cool metrics, what's called a dead spot score, where your foot basically has a deceleration in it around the pedal stroke. Another plot we came up with called the pedal stroke intelligence plot shows where those dead spot scores occur in the 360-degree circle and how they're related to cadence and power, because you may have a dead spot at 80 RPM and 200 watts, but you may not have a dead spot at 80 RPM and 400 watts. Or maybe you have a dead spot at 80 RPM and 200 watts, but if you raise your RPM to 100 RPM and 200 watts, that dead spot goes away. So cadence and power are super important. And so that's been a really fun project to be involved with, because all of a sudden, Todd, and I was asking forever, like, what's your optimal cadence? Like, what is the optimal cadence? And I was kind of asking the wrong question. because there's not really an optimal cadence. It's actually kind of an optimal gearing, right? And you know that from track racing, right?
Yeah, it's we're always parsing down. I mean, you're always looking like, well, maybe I should go up an inch or down an inch, and and you think, what's 1 gear inch is nothing, and I'll calculate all this stuff out and be looking like, hey, it's okay, it's 60k an hour. That's going to be like 3 RPM. And you think it's not a big deal, but it is a big deal when you're trying to win a race by a very small margin.
Yep, exactly. And so what I found was when you put these sensors on your feet that, and you see the dead spots, and then you see the relationship between power and cadence, and then we created this map. We call it the Power Cadence Dead Spot Map. And what happens is there are certain combinations of cadence and power outputs that are bad, right? So it's like, oh wow, when I do pedal at 70 RPM and it's anything over 250 watts, my foot flops all over the place like a dead fish, or whatever. It's like this thing is completely uncoordinated. Something's going on. But as soon as I raise my cadence to 100 or 92 or 88 or whatever that number is, those dead spots go away. Or maybe I raise my power. So it's this XY combination of power and cadence that tells us, in understanding where the dead spot is, like, wow, for you, when you're riding under 200 watts, you need to make sure that you keep your cadence over 82 RPM. And then you're not going to have your foot be uneconomical. But when you go to 350 watts, then you need to be riding at 90 RPM or better. And then you're not going to have these dead spots. So, I was asking kind of the right question, but I didn't know that, this 1/3 piece, which was, could we see where the dead spot occurs in your pedal stroke and then correlate it to that? So that's been a lot of fun to really be a part of that project too.
Are there other places where you would use that type of technology on other parts of the body, or that you could see that would be beneficial?
Yeah, we put it just recently on the chest, on the sternum, and we have one on your low back, on your pelvis, and then it goes on your sternum, because we wanted to see rocking motion. So we've all been behind the rider in a pace line or whatever, and their hips are rocking back and forth, and we call that rocking. And then there's also rotation, so the pelvis turns, rotates as well. So the sensor can see those things. And they're related, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that are related. We're fixed in space to, you're connected to the pedal, you're connected to the handlebars, you're connected to the seat. So you think, well, all this stuff is pretty even because we're connected, but, everybody's a little different, and you sit on the seat differently, or your leg might be a little different length. And, and so then all of a sudden that causes your hips to turn a certain way. And then that impacts the spine, and then that impacts the chest, and then that ends up giving you pain in your neck. I mean, it's like, right. Everything's connected, right? So then all of a sudden, like when you put it on the low back and then on your sternum, you can start to see, what's happening with the upper body during a workout or during a race, because as you guys know, I've been racing for a long time. One of the first giveaways of the riders getting tired, right, is they start to really rock their upper body back and forth. And so that's a clear indicator of fatigue. And now we can actually measure that, like pinpoint when is fatigue occurring, right?
Seeing that overlaid with the power and the software that's there is obviously the power of it as well, as being able to have those things overlaid. And I was just doing some recent starts and things, seated starts and things, and kind of getting an idea of smoothness and all these kinds of things. And it's like, the ability to be able to see when that happens, not just, my pelvis was moving, or, but now you can start to pick that up. And if you have it on a race, now you can kind of get that same kind of idea of, well, almost look at it as in some ways related to, like, I've looked at decoupling a lot. When is somebody, their endurance, or no, you can kind of look at it and say, well, yeah, they're getting tired because they're getting sloppy. And I can pick, and it's like outside of, like, yeah, maybe having your heart rate and power haven't decoupled yet, but you're starting to, your foot's starting to move around here, your pelvis is going, or maybe they start to sprint, and it's like, man, you got a lot of motion going on here. What's going on? Why is your pelvis pivoting around this other axis? Or more so, as we all know, is like, when you get tired and you're trying to sprint, right? And we've all watched the end of those 200 or 250K, 300K road races, and guys are sprinting and their bikes are snapping all over the place. Because, well, it's not that they're bad riders; it's that they're really tired.
Well, and it seems that, like, maybe in cross or mountain too, that might even be more important to be able to gauge those things for efficiency through more technical riding, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And being able to see, how much of the upper body do you really move, and how much of that is a part of the role of keeping grip on the rear tire. So there are lots of things that could really be correlated to this. And I think that's where we'll see more of these types of sensors. I mean, there's going to be, some other sensors that'll come out, for our bodies. We still have yet to see a good respiration rate strap. The Zephyr, the Zephyr has been out for a long time. I got the Zephyr when they first came out with that strap. It was this big souped up heart rate strap, and it gets respiration rate, but it never really got it down to a place where it would be, oh wow, cyclists will use it, and it was never became ANT plus. And so, like, respiration rates, really, man, there's some really cool stuff that you can do with that. And then there's the angle of the bike. There's people out there who've made sensors to understand what the bike angle is at. Like, guys at iBike Sports, their Power Pod, that thing tells you what angle the bike is at and how you wobble the bike. And I think that, starting to marry some of these things together, all of a sudden it's like, yeah, putting this on a mountain bike or a cyclocross racer could be really interesting, for improvement.
Well, and then think about what Zwift or Strava would be without power, and now think about how these things might add into the reality of racing in those formats, especially the Zwift format, as that technology develops and that becomes more realistic and guys become more into that. I can only imagine how those type of sensors may end up working into some program 5 or 10 years down the road, where this is sort of similar to that big heavy power meter you were talking about.
Right.
Yeah, I think there's so many of these things too, and one you didn't touch on yet either was HRV, where people are playing with that a little bit and trying to do some things with that. And I have one of my athletes tracks his HRV, and right now it's kind of getting good data out of that is the biggest challenge. I think there's things we can do with it. But if the data is not good, then it's hard to go far with it. But that's another one. I think start marrying all these things up. It's going to be an interesting next 10 or 15 years. And where do you see the big emphasis? I know we've kind of talked about dual side power meters, and it seems like it's kind of not going maybe as fast as maybe we would have originally thought. Maybe is it more along the Leomo side? Is it more like analyzing rider position, bike movements, or where do you see the next 10 years going?
Yeah, I think that's again, kind of, we'll see some more sensor stuff coming out. I think that'll be interesting, and I think but really, I think most of it is going to be on the software side. I think that's where we're going to see more predictive type analyses. We're going to see things that come out that allow us to, really, make your bike fit very, very efficient, and really improve some of those, the economy of the rider. Some of it is challenging because it's going to be, the revolution has occurred, right? A power meter, that stuff. I have a hard time believing, but I certainly could be wrong, that another thing is going to come out that's going to revolutionize cycling just like the power meter has. But I think it'll be, more evolutionary, kind of like what WKO4 was or is in our software. This new software. Hey, we're evolutionary, and I think that's where it's going to push down that path. Now, the problem with that might only really be applicable to people who are looking to get that last 1%, right? With a power meter, man, it's like you can get 30 more percent or 40 more percent. It's massive gains that you can have with just getting a power meter. And then you kind of go down the rabbit hole and, okay, let's get a left-right power meter. Now that's going to give me some more. Okay, let's get the Leomo. Now that's going to, really get my motion dialed in. Let's get the software dialed in. So it's gonna further fine tune those things. And I tell you, esports is coming. I mean, it is here, right?
Yeah.
And we are. I made a strategic decision last year. And a lot of people don't understand this, right? A lot of people don't understand esports, and I didn't understand esports to begin with. And I was like, how are people making money? I don't get this, right? I don't understand this. But there's a lot of ways that these professional gamers make money. Number one, they have competitions, right? And so one way that they make money is you pay $20 and you get to play in a special part of the game and collect points, over 4 to 8 weeks. And then at the end of that period, the people who have the most points then get invited to, a live game in Vegas or Atlantic City or wherever they have these things, and they got like 4,000 people in the audience are watching guys play video game on these massive screens. And then, so, it's like, oh, well, where's the money come from? Well, $20, it doesn't sound like much, but there's like freaking 5 million people paying $20.
Right. Yeah. Your audience for that is huge. Like it's not like a physical race where you can only draw so many people.
Right. So, you got $10 million that's being generated by all these people that have bought into the game. And then the organizers, right, the race promoters, they said, well, cool. Yeah, we'll give 5 million away. Right. And so then 2.5 million becomes first prize. And it's like, holy crap, these gamers are playing, for $2.5 million for first place. Last place is like 500,000. Sweet.
It's so when you were bringing it up last year and I did the same thing. I was like, this is dumb. Nobody's like, how is anybody going to do this thing? But you see how it does play out. And certainly the technology is still really in its infancy, I think, too. It's not really mature. And I think, the platform you're connecting with now, CV Arcade is the name, if I'm not mistaken. And they're doing better, right? And Zwift is evolving as well and doing different things. And, because I get at Zwift and honestly, and like, Mike Jones had something the other day.
I was just going to bring Mike up. And that's the thing is you talk about it being so, I was just texting with him about it the other night, but you talk about it being so like it's in its infancy, but it's still really good. Like a guy like Mike is like, this is so much fun. Like he's not going to quit racing outside in the summer for it, but at the same time to do it in the winter, he's having a blast. And if you can appeal to a guy like him, and as the technology gets better, I mean, is it going to make it so it's going to be hard to put on events because everybody can just race in their basement and don't have to worry about crashing and don't have to worry about driving anywhere, and you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it's yet much more accessible. I guess that's maybe my biggest fear is like, oh, we're not going to have races anymore because everybody's just going to do it online.
Well, I think there's part of it's like Mike and I were going back for a little bit because talk about the drafting on there, and he's like I think maybe my height, I go wider on these turns or whatever. I said, well, I don't ever feel like I get enough draft. I always feel like I get a lot more draft in real life than I do on Zwift, and I always feel like I'm just pedaling like really hard all the time on Zwift to, and then people lie about their weight. So there's a whole bunch of things that kind of go into where it's at right now, and I think that will eventually even out, and they'll even when running the competitions, they make sure people aren't cheating, and there's ways of doing that. But it's kind of a free for all right now. It's like people are using e-bikes to get Strava segments. I mean,
Right.
So it's the Wild West on that stuff, and it's okay. And I look at it as like, yeah, it's entertaining. Where it ends up, I guess I don't look at it as a fearful thing either, as saying it's going to take away, because nothing beats being outside on your bike, and nothing beats going through a turn at 55, 60K an hour, bumping elbows with somebody. You're not going to get that on Zwift, and it's just, it's the element of speed. It's like we've had pole position for 40 years, and yet, Hunter still goes out and races his car. He could sit in the basement play pole position.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's so here's the game changer is when the prize purse gets to be big, right? I mean, in CVR last year, the prize purse was $50,000 for the LA event, and so the first place woman went home with $7,500. And just to put that in perspective, she was a very good Category 2 racer, a very good racer inside Zwift. She knows how to race inside Zwift because there's some things you have to know how to do. Beat some pro women out for that $7,000. But put that in perspective, right? The winning prize money for what's her name, Anna Verbruggen or whatever, I think is her name. I'm probably butchering this. Who won the Tour of Flanders? The pro woman who won the Tour of Flanders last year was $2,200.
Right.
Right. So the woman who won the Tour of Flanders, the best pro, baddest ass pro woman in the world, she got $2,200, and this other woman in a virtual race, she won $7,500, and the guys were the same. The guys got just the same amount of money, and it was like that was all normalized, right? So it was at a venue, right? The guy Frank Garcia, who owns CV Arcade, rented out the LA Velodrome. He had 10 power Cyclops hammer trainers there. All of them were calibrated. We had an engineer there from Cyclops. He calibrated them before every race. Every rider had to weigh in, right? So there was a certified scale there. They all had to weigh in the morning, in the morning they all had to weigh in. So everybody knew exactly what their power to weight ratio was, and they were all riding right there they were riding live, right? They were there. There was no cheating going on. And so there was a real race. And that's where the difference maker is, right? I mean, imagine the prize list being $1 million to race, and imagine the LA Velodrome or whatever, the Trexler Town Velodrome or whatever you want to imagine being rented out, and these guys in the infield, and it's Chris Froome, and it's Peter Sagan, and it's Geraint Thomas, right? And they're racing right there. And now imagine being in the infield, being 6 feet away from them and cheering them on, right? While they're racing, while you're watching a big screen and there's their avatar in the screen and you're standing right beside them and they've got cameras on them and they're racing right there. All of a sudden it's like, wow, and like, oh wait, I can win $1 million in an hour and a half race in a Zwift race or CV Arcade, or I could race the Tour de France for 21 days and win $300,000. Right?
Yeah, I mean,
that's what I was thinking about when you were talking about the money that they're making in China on some of these races, and thinking about what some of our domestic pros are trying to get around making, and thinking, man, some of those guys should just go to China and race.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, that's what I would do if I was 22 years old, out of college. I'd be moving to China and learning Chinese and racing in China if I wanted to be a pro cyclist. That's for sure.
Well, I think all the CV arcade and all the stuff in it, and it's all pretty new. And I think it's going to be, I guess I kind of look at it as going to be it's going to be a piece of pro cycling. It's like you see pro teams now, they're entering other disciplines, right? So they have gravel races on their schedule, or they have, they're doing different things because that's where the market is, that's where the eyeballs are. And people are going to want to go see Peter Sagan racing on a Zwift thing because of what he's done outside, and they want to see both. And they're, I think they're going to play off each other. It's not going to become an exclusive, like, hey, all we do is sit on ergometers and race Zwift, but I think it becomes an element of that.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see it evolve, and I think it's very interesting what CV Arcade's doing right now too, and I'm certainly involved in this. Is making it so that you ride and then you also have a controller, right? You can crash if you go too fast around a turn. You can be in a pace line. I mean, we were in an echelon the other day. The wind was coming from the left. We were riding in an echelon across the track, and it was like, man, if you fell out of the echelon, the resistance got harder. It was like, crap, I need to get back in line here, right?
Yeah. Getting those realistic things. Yeah, that was what I was kind of saying to Mike, because I was like, it's not quite there yet. And when that stuff it's only going to get better. But I will say, as a guy who loves all things track, putting people in the infield and racing electronically bothers me. You're sitting in the middle of a 250-meter spruce track, and you're riding something I can do in my basement, So that part does bother me. Like, do it somewhere else. I don't care. Find the Marriott.
In the stadium, right? Jumbotron.
Exactly.
Right.
Do it in the middle of the track. It's kind of sacrilegious, right? But it's going to be an interesting landscape going forward, even in the near future, I think, and especially as these disciplines and things. But yeah, I think it's a really a tribute to you being a more visionary hunter and saying, not only was the power meter was absolutely revolutionary, and not just the power meter, but actually what to do with it. We've been able to measure power for a long time. That wasn't, being able to get it out on the road and having the technology to do that was another evolution. But the real revolution was getting it in everybody's hands and knowing what to do with it. That's been really amazing, and I've felt privileged just being able to ride some of that wave of just like, hey, getting in early with that so many years ago, and kind of going along with that, and just being like, wow, here we are this many years down the road, and being able to look back at that landscape and say, man, I'm doing this for like 15 years with power meters now.
Right.
It's like, wow, how'd that much time go? But then not resting on that and pushing forward is fun. And things like, like you're doing with the Leomo, things like we're doing with the Zwift and CV Arcade, and all these things are just, it just keeps pushing into new areas. And I think that's what always makes it fun, and it's exciting. It'd be fun to see where it's going to ultimately go. But I don't think it'll ever replace. There's nothing that beats the feel of going down the road with the wind in your face and seeing the countryside. I mean, Zwift, I just do it all the time. Zwift is fun and everything, and it's distracting. But man, if I can go outside, I'm going outside. It's just,
I know. Dude, hey, you're talking to the choir. I'm there too. I mean, I love riding my bike and being outside and going, going places and seeing the countryside and doing all that. And so that's why I ride bicycles. And but there's just like the millennials, right? There's a whole new group of folks who are coming into cycling that don't ride outside, and or they can't, like, they live in these cities, and it's like, man, I can't ride outside, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, but I can race indoors, and I can do these things. So it's like, you know what? I think you're right. I mean, there's always going to be the outdoor racing. I hope so. Knock on wood, fingers crossed. I certainly don't want that I love to die. But I think there's also going to be a big place for this indoor virtual racing, and if the money continues to grow, it's going to be a lot bigger than outdoor racing is.
Yeah, anybody's prediction at this point, I guess. And I guess there's always going to be a part of me that's always going to be planted in the past of just, yeah, I love actual real bike racing, and nothing beats, you can crash my avatar on the screen all you want, but and you know as well as I do, man, when it's coming down to turn 4 of that criterium, and it's 3 abreast, and who's gonna have the nerves of steel to keep pressing on it, not back off, because it's not gonna be just my avatar that ends up in the bushes. It's gonna be me missing some skin.
Yeah.
And
well, there'll always be people that are wired that way and want to go out and do that. Like you said, you're still racing your car outside, and that's always going to be the case. The question is whether those sort of weekend warrior guys go, it's a little bit safer and easier to be in the basement than to be out there doing it. But the other trade-off might be, to Hunter's point of getting more younger people involved, they try it that way and then they go, yeah, I'm kind of wired like that too, and I want to get out and really get in the reality of it. So maybe we get more of those people, and it develops on both ends, and everybody's happy.
Yeah, and I think it can play into so many things. I mean, like we just went down to Chile with Dieter. We did a podcast from there a few weeks back, months ago now. But and Eileen wanted to go to Chile and ride her bike, and she's not as keen as riding in the cold as much as I am, although she did marvelous as well. Rode some 40-degree rain getting ready. But there was days where she got a Zwift account, and she's even been hitting some sprints lately. Where it's like, hey, there's a sprint thing. And she's like, hey, I was the 6th woman tonight on the sprint. I'm like, hey, sweet, cool. And for just goofing off and being entertained by it and having fun with it and using it to get in shape. And people live in cities and they want to go do something, like they want to go to Chile and ride. And they're like, well, but it's going to be in December and I can't. But you can train and you can do different things to be ready. And so I think it's a great tool, and it's going to be an aspect for sure. I mean, it's here. You're right. Yeah. So, but well, hey, I bet we could probably keep everybody on here for like 3 more hours. But I think
this one could go forever, man. This has been great.
It's great stuff. So I'm glad you were able to join us, though, Hunter. It's been fantastic to have you here, and just kind of even getting the little progression and the story of kind of how we got to this point. And just thanks a lot to your vision, Andy Coggin's fantastic work. I mean, I probably couldn't overstate either one of those. The vision there and the fantastic work that he did in mining a lot of that data and coming up with that stuff is just it's truly revolutionary, and it's fun to be part of that revolution.
Yeah, well, good. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It's glad to have you and everybody along for this. It's an honor, and certainly didn't have any clue it was going to be as cool and as fun as it was. And it's been a great time, and I continue to look forward to more, teaching more people how to be better coaches and how to be better cyclists, and how to shortcut that process. And that's my mission, is to share this knowledge, and that's all it's ever been, is just share the knowledge so that we can all improve. And I think that's where I'm continuing to push.
Excellent. Well, the book's coming out. We'll be sure to we'll definitely make some more mentions of that. We'll be looking for it in March. So hopefully people will be eagerly awaiting, and we'll certainly give some promos to it. I think it's even if people got an old copy, the old copy is gold. And I might even sign. I got a signed Hunter Allen copy. You may not even remember just signing mine for me, but I had you sign one early on. So nice. I might auction it at some point. So, but yeah. So we'll look forward to the new book coming out, and more Leomo stuff. And so yeah, and if people have questions, certainly forward them our way, and we'll look forward to more innovations coming along.
Excellent, man. Thank you so much for having me on here, guys.
Thank you. I appreciate it.